What's going on, guys? Khraze here and welcome back to Outriders. Today let's talk about a really important subject because there's no other important subjects in the world right now except for my opinion about this game for some reason. I'm just kidding, of course, but this was a long overdue video that I really wanted to make, but I really wanted to take my time with the game, with a free demo, with everything that we got in terms of information in the past few months, and kind of present all of that into a long list of things that I really like about Outriders, about things that I really dislike about the game, and some things in between that I think that the company could do a lot better. Hopefully that will improve when the game launches or sometime after that. Now, a huge disclaimer, this isn't a buy suggestion sort of thing. If you enjoy a game, my opinion is that, yeah, go ahead and buy it if you like it. If you don't like it, either don't buy it at all, wait for a discount, or at least wait for some reviews. Speaking of which, if you still want to try the game out and not take any risk, why not take part in our March giveaway instead for a free copy of Outriders on a platform of your choice. You can do so by being subscribed to the channel and following the links down below, and I will announce the winner right here on this channel as well as via the email address provided. With that out of the way, let's begin with some of the strong points that the game has right now, and I want to specifically start things off with a topic that for me is of utmost importance, and it can make or completely break a game for me, and that is of course loot and character progression. It happened way too often in the past couple of years for really cool concepts to come out only to completely botch the way you chase loot. Specifically, I'm looking at Anthem and most recently Marvel's Avengers. Well, it seems that in the case of Outriders, that isn't the case anymore. The loot in this game looks enticing, it looks amazing, especially the higher end. There's also a ton of really powerful effects and combinations you can create, but most important of them all, you have a ton of freedom as a player to create and progress your character towards higher challenge tiers. The reason for that is because you get access to powerful loot through more than just one way. So yes, there's still going to be loot farming and chasing in the game. You're still going to go in and kill multiple enemies and farm a ton of content to get that really awesome legendary, but it doesn't mean you have to stick to refarming the same piece of loot in hopes to get the perfect stats on it. Instead, the game gives you a really cool option in the form of crafting, which gives you a ton of freedom. So let me just give you an example. Let's say you find a really awesome piece of legendary, but it doesn't come with the proper stats or mods on them. But at the same time, maybe you got an epic or a rare some time ago that does have the proper stats on them, like maybe a really cool mod or a piece of crit shard on it that you want to transfer to that legendary. Well, in the case of Outriders, all you have to do is to just dismantle that rare or epic piece, get that awesome shard and mod out of it, and then apply it to that specific legendary that you really wanted to use on your character but never got it with the proper stats. And this is just like one of the examples. You can create armor pieces that are really amazing and weapons to the point that you can have full control or almost full control over how your character is going to look like in the end game. Furthermore, it also helps the fact that there's over 350 passive abilities on weapons and armors that you can unlock permanently and combine to create amazing results. Again, as I've said previously, we will talk about these fully when the game launches, but if you play the free demo right now, you probably already know what I mean when it comes to these powerful effects. Another strong point for Outriders is the way it handles its aesthetics, and specifically I want to mention here the classes, how they differentiate from one another, and even more important, some of the high-end loot that exists specifically for each class in the game. And I never got bored in my 100-hour plus in Outriders free demo with any of the 4 classes. I think that all of them are really amazing. They feel very impactful and important on the battlefield while also feeling distinct enough from one another. Something that is also helped by the fact that there are 8 different skills for each of the classes in the game, and also a pretty extensive skill tree with 3 different skill lines and possibilities for each and every single one of them. So when it comes to building a proper character, I really think that there is a ton of options when it comes to that. It also helps that the high-end loot, as I've said, can look super unique. Of course, the early ones, yeah, they seem generic and they seem to be shared between all the classes, but as you progress through the stages changes as you get higher quality loot, like especially from Epic and above, it definitely starts to look really awesome. Like there's some really amazing options in the game. I got a few screenshots, by the way, if you want to check them out, and these are just like really low level still, like the legendary stuff. Yeah, it looks really top notch. Now the final thing that I will mention in terms of like net positives for Outriders is the sheer amount of content that the game comes with right from the very beginning. So this mostly is due to the fact that the team is not reusing any of the main story content in the end game. You basically have both of these sections completely separated, so you only get access to the end game stuff once you reach level 30 and have finished the main campaign, point at which you unlock additional 15 levels to farm into, get the best gear and fight like the biggest monsters possible. Of course, this doesn't mean that it's all going to be completely new biomes. Some of these levels are going to still be in while similar environments that you saw in the main campaign, but these are completely new maps with new stories, new mechanics in many of the cases, and new enemies, so you're not going to feel like you're just repeating the game again. Even though you still have the option to do that, by the way, through all of this, you still have the option to either do your farming there or go back at the campaign and maybe repeat the campaign or a part of a mission or a certain point that you found really well in terms of farming. There's a ton of content right off the gate and you're not going to have to pay any extra for that, which I think speaks volumes for a game in 2021. But enough with the praising, let's talk a bit about some of the lesser strong points of the game. And to give you a full disclaimer, I had a bit of a problem to create a full list of things that I hate about Outriders the game. There's nothing really that I hate too much about this game. There's only like things that slightly annoy me here and there. Well, maybe with the exception of the FPS lock in cutscenes and the excessive camera shake in the cutscenes. Yeah, that I really hate, but that's pretty much the only thing that I found to piss me off for some reason. Everything else could be fixable at one point or another. So one of the things that I want to start with, and probably the one that's been on everybody's mind, is the fact that Outriders right now has a bit of an identity crisis. You look at it and it doesn't really innovate too much. It's kind of like this combination of Gears of War with some of the recent looter shooter elements that we had in the past few years. And that would be pretty much it. Add a few superpowers here and there and bam, that's a game for you. And I think that that's the one big reason that so many people feel put off or are cautious about it. It's because maybe the team over at Outriders stuck too much onto the safe side and didn't bring anything new to the table. So not that many people who maybe play other games at the moment feel compelled to jump into Outriders. Now, does this mean that every new game that comes out the window has to innovate in order to like be noticeable? Well, personally, I don't think it has to be. I think that many games out there can just prove themselves by the fact that they're just good games, and I think that Outriders might have the potential to do that, even though at launch it might not have like the biggest launch out of all. Like, even if you look around at the details of the game, this didn't have the biggest budget, it didn't like throw everything into marketing. That's why you barely hear of it outside of, well, just the main channels and some of the people who cover it on YouTube, and it definitely didn't cost hundreds of millions of dollars like how games like Destiny did, so maybe expectations should also be in check. But at the same time, the upside is the fact that you get that full experience right from the very beginning and not have to wait months or years at an end for some drip feed kind of content. Now, moving forward, let's talk about the weapons and how they feel. Another thing that I think that should be on the priority list for the developers right now, because weapons, many of them, the overwhelming majority of them, feel like they don't have proper feedback. They kind of feel like toy guns, paper guns, and I think it's a combination between the lack of proper recoil for many of them combined with the sound effects and the way the enemies react. I think that the problem right here is threefold. So right from the very beginning, some of the weapons have some pretty shady or non-existent recoil. Second of all, some of the characters that get hit by these weapons or by their bullets don't always react on time. Like, sometimes it seems that they lag behind a little bit and they only react like a few milliseconds later, which definitely is noticeable when you're playing. And finally, we also have the sound effects. Like some of the weapons again don't feel as powerful as they should when you shoot them, and that feedback really is important, especially since this team worked previously on Gears of War games. The next bit that you might or might not like about this game, depending on where you come from, is how limited the character customization feels, as in there's very few faces and options to customize your character to make it completely unique. And I think that this is one of the major points in which the game right now is lacking. Now don't get me wrong, the faces right there are pretty awesome. Like I really like two of them for the males and the females. I kind of like some of the hair options and some other things. I just wish there was way more for us in that screen to make our characters feel truly unique, and unfortunately there's also no big plans to add more on top, at least not for the foreseeable future. The last bit that I will talk about is probably gonna be all about the performance. Now, as I've said, graphically speaking, the game doesn't look too bad. Like the high-end textures on ultra-high settings definitely look very crisp. It's just that the aesthetic and the artwork doesn't seem too inspiring in many of these environments, so maybe a lot of people might consider this a discounted Destiny or whatever, but for me personally I have no problem with that. What I do have a problem with is the fact that the game could have performed a little bit better on high-end hardware. So on a 2080 Ti right now at 1440p, it should have run way better than 60 FPS at that resolution with the highest possible settings. So I had to scale down on those and bring everything to like the immediate after that, so on high, to be able to keep 60 FPS consistently, especially in the hub, which for some reason is the most demanding area of the demo right now. Outside of this, there's not that many things that I hated about the game in particular. I think that at least in the demo so far, it was pretty decent. You know, it has a pretty generic storyline, a pretty generic like voice actor, especially for the male character, but at the same time it kind of benefits from some really cool dark humor that at least makes some of these moments that would otherwise be boring to be a little bit more interesting and kind of give you a chuckle every now and then. Everything else, I think I pretty much covered it in this video, and if I didn't, it's probably not that high on the priority list how it is compared to the other topics that I've discussed. But totally let me know what is your opinion so far down below. Let me know if you're planning to buy the game day one, or if you're waiting for reviews, or never planning to buy it at all. I would like to know your opinion in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.